looking at some of the issues you've mentioned, how can we then ensure that the benefits of agricultural development are shared equitably among all Africans, including the smallholder farmers?
I guess sharing equitably, sharing the output of the agriculture sector equitably has to be a business in itself. Have you ever thought of it? If you're doing farming as a business, and many of us educated people do farming as a business when some of the other things are not working, right? We all have, in Kenya we call it side hustle, right? So people have these side hustles that they go and do. If you're not getting a profit, how many times will you do it? So if none at all, you're shaking your head. So if you look at how value chains are built in the agricultural ecosystem, the businesses that have done well are the businesses that have figured out how to make a value chain work for every player in the value chain. Because if I'm not profitable, I'll be the weakest link. So today, most of our value chains are weak because the weakest link is the farmer. If I'm in the business and I'm not profitable, I'm not going to do what is expected, right? So I think the biggest opportunity we have is to strengthen these value chains so that everybody sees that profit is sharing profit in the value chain is a business in itself, because that's how you sustain your business. So it's a business incentive. You will find, for example, in some of the more sophisticated value chains, value is shared, and farmers get good value for what they are doing, and even quality is incentivized and is paid for. So the more we do stuff like that, the more these value chains become sustainable, and the more profitable it is for the businesses that participate in there.
What are some of the areas you feel need to be prioritized for the sector to move forward?
There are a number of things that need to be prioritized for the sector to move on. I think one of the biggest things that needs to be prioritized is rethink our prioritization. And I mean that. Rethink our prioritization means that when you have 65 to 70% of your people living in a sector, isn't that the sector that should receive the biggest investment? Because you see, you might go and invest in, I don't know, in oil, I don't know, wherever, I don't know. But if, let's say you go and you say, let's agree that we've decided that the investment case is restaurants, right? Because restaurants makes money or whatever. I went to New York, I found that for every 100 meters, there was a restaurant. So I come back here as an African, I say, I'm going to put a restaurant for every 100 meters because I saw that in New York there was a restaurant for every, and we're making big money. The question for me would be, or even a movie theaters. I saw so many of them. Who is going to go there? Who is going to go in that restaurant? Because 65% of your population, for every 10 people, 7 people cannot use the facility you just put in there. So it means that developing the rest of our economies, developing the service economy, cannot work as well as we would like it to do, because who is going to use the service? Who is going to use the service you're putting on the table? So having missed that, for me, is the biggest problem. Missing that the agriculture sector is an entry point to how the service economy gets to work, because that's how you get more people into spending money. We've missed that. So as a result, whatever you put out there, you build houses, nobody rents them. You build everything. It doesn't work. Why? Because because people are stuck in poverty. So the way you get people get out of poverty is the agricultural sector. So this CAADP is the entry point. There was something called the agricultural revolution. But the problem is that is near 100 years ago. How come the rest of the world did that? And we think in Africa, we will not do that. The agricultural revolution was to get massive amounts of people out of the agriculture, out of low productive economies into higher productive economies. and leave the agriculture sector to a few that are able to manage it from a technology perspective. We need to shift labor from non-productive to more productive sectors. We need to shift labor from places where people have no access to money to places where they have access to money, so that they can be able to spend money in other areas. So, in a nutshell, prioritization needs to be about the agriculture sector so that we get more people out of poverty and get more spending capital and get more sectors to work. And that's how people boost economies. And pay taxes. Farmers, we don't need taxes from farmers, we need taxes from businesses. We don't, if a farmer is a big business, viable business, they have to pay tax. But if a farmer is struggling to produce food, what tax are we talking about? But if we get them out of poverty, they can pay tax, right? So I think that's just being able to look at these things from that perspective and understanding that we need people to pay tax to service our economies, but we can't pay tax if we are poor. Yes. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not reshaping the policy here. I'm just responding to questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Byron Adonis Mtingwend. I'm the editor of Spiked Online Media from Zimbabwe. President, you kind of read my mind. I wanted to ask you what has been the impact of Agras's flagship program, which is now called the Africa Food Systems Forum.
The Africa Food Systems Forum was, like I said earlier, was created to create a platform for public and private dialogue. It was also created to create a platform for showcasing progress and learning, but now it has also become a place for knowledge exchange, for scientific knowledge exchange, but also for policy dialogues and discussions. It's grown immensely from just public-private dialogue around why aren't we making the progress we want, to these are the opportunities as well. But also we are using it now as a mechanism to move agendas forward. So really the initial intention was to find ways of fast-tracking the ease of doing business for businesses, because businesses had access to public and they were able to dialogue with public partners, especially ministers and directors. They were able to dialogue around how their businesses are not working, while at the same time receiving feedback around where ministers and governments want to see the most investments. So together, bond that relationship around developing a country between public and private sector. We've taken it further. We've brought in scientists, we've brought in funding institutions, we've brought in farmers' organizations, we've brought in youth, we've brought in parliamentarians, we've brought in agendas for advancing women. And the idea is, we focus a lot on showcasing what is working so that we give people an opportunity to come and learn, but also to take it forward. We focus a lot on networking and creating a networking space, because what we are short of is not lack of ideas. There are so many ideas, but how we network them and advance them together and make them work on the ground sometimes doesn't add up. So it's really a place, a marketplace for the food system sector, for people to come together and exchange ideas. But we also leave, each time we leave the forum with critical agreements on what progress we want to see the next year. Most of those are around things like the legacy program that I just said, where the government comes in with an agenda and is able to advance its agenda and has partners that are willing to contribute to that, to invest in that, both in public and private. We've created deal rooms where we are allowing private sector to look at opportunities that are available across the continent. We actually now have investment flows. Uganda itself was able to get 100 million from the deal room last year in Tanzania. Tanzania has been able to mobilize 600 million from partners by presenting its flagship or its legacy program to partners at the Africa Food Systems Forum. And if I said the number of young people who you meet in the quarry and they tell you, thank you for introducing us to the D room, I was able to get 200,000, I was able to get this and that. But also the number of partners that are beginning to understand how Africa works because they come to this forum, that are beginning to understand the complexity, but also the fact that it can be simplified when they start working with people. So many stuff that is happening. And what I find exciting is that ministers come and they go back wanting, I really want to have this thing happening in my country because I want to make sure that I'm understanding how to connect people better. And how to connect better with the private sector.